evening. I'm Erin Burnett. Out front tonight, how stupid does Trump think we Americans are? The president's excuse for his embarrassing press conference, where he sided with Vladimir Putin over his own intelligence chiefs, does not add up. We are learning tonight that, driven by fear of resignations in the intelligence community, the president decided that he would say he misspoke during one of the multiple times that he took Putin's side against America's in that press conference. And so, after meeting with top aides today, President Trump read from a prepared statement, offering up, frankly, what seems to be a dog ate my homework excuse on how things went terribly wrong in Helsinki.
In a key sentence in my remarks, I said the word would instead of wouldn't. The sentence should have been, I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be Russia. Sort of a double negative. So you can put that in, and I think that probably clarifies things pretty good by itself.
No, it does not. It does not clarify anything. It doesn't even pass the smell test. So let me play for you again what the president said 32 hours ago, what he's just referring to there.
My people came to me, Dan Coates came to me, and some others. They said they think it's Russia. I have President Putin. He just said it's not Russia. I will say this. I don't see any reason why it would be.
I don't see any reason why it would be. Okay, so everybody makes mistakes. Trump's explanation that he meant wouldn't instead of would might stand a chance of being plausible, except for a few reasons, one of which is this. That was just one of multiple times in that same press conference that he sided with Russia.
Do you hold Russia at all accountable for anything in particular? And if so, what would you consider them that they are responsible for?
Yes, I do. I hold both countries responsible. I think that the United States has been foolish. I think we've all been foolish. I will tell you that President Putin was extremely strong and powerful in his denial today.
Look, it is what it is. This is consistent with what he's been saying over the past year. He said what he meant, and he said it again and again. The U.S. has been foolish. Putin was strong and powerful in his denials. It just makes it a bit absurd to say that the president just misspoke that one time on this whole would-wouldn't thing. Keep in mind, if he did misspeak, okay, this is the other issue, that one time, and none of the others where he expressed the same sentiment. He had 28 hours of condemnation from U.S. intelligence and his own party to correct the record. He failed to do so in any of those 28 hours. In fact, during that time, he conducted 2 interviews with Fox News. He tweeted 9 times. His administration released talking points defending his performance at the summit. Not once did the president or his aides in 28 hours try to say that the president of the United States misspoke. Again, in one of the multiple times that he praised Putin and took his side. So the president's explanation does not add up, and neither does his assertion today that he accepts America's intelligence agency conclusion that Russia attacked the American 2016 election. Because today, even when he was reading a prepared script accepting the intelligence community's conclusions, the real Donald Trump reared his head.
I accept our intelligence community's conclusion that Russia's meddling in the 2016 election took place. Could be other people also. There's a lot of people out there.
There are a lot of people out there. That is true. But on this particular issue, no. Look, the thing is, and we all know it at this point, is that is what Trump really thinks, okay? Because he has said it before.
Maybe there is no hacking, but they always blame Russia. And the reason they blame Russia is because they think they're trying to tarnish me with Russia. I'll go along with Russia. Could have been China. Could have been a lot of different groups. It also could be somebody sitting on their bed that weighs 400 pounds, okay?
Maybe it was a 400-pound Russian. U.S. intelligence agencies do not blame other people. They don't talk about how many other people there are on this planet that possibly could have been done this. No, this is very clear, right? It's Russia, not a 400-pound man, Putin, who is far from that. But the president of the United States is incapable of accepting this because at the very least we know this. He thinks it calls his election victory into question. Caitlin Collins is out front live at the White House tonight. And Caitlin, you were learning a lot more about the scramble behind the scenes, the meeting at the White House today that the president attended to contain this damage.
We are, Erin. The president's big retreat came after his top national security advisors huddled today to try to figure out how to undo the damage that had been done in that press conference in Helsinki when the president embraced the Russian president over United States intelligence agencies. The Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, the National Security Advisor John Bolton, and Vice President Mike Pence all huddled in the Situation Room today discussing what it was the president should say to try to clarify or try to fix what they could after there was severe backlash, not just in Helsinki, but also back here in Washington in response to the president's remarks at that press conference, after it became quite clear today, Erin, that a tweet was not going to suffice to fix the damage that had been done here. We saw the president come out. He gave those very scripted remarks saying that it was simply a miscommunication. He said one word when he meant another. But Erin, of course, if you watched that press conference, it doesn't nullify that the president did embrace Vladimir Putin several times and gave a lot of voice to his denials of election meddling.
He did indeed, Caitlin. As you point out, when he came out today, it was scripted, except for when it wasn't, right? And it wasn't just what he said. We've pointed out some of the issues with that, but also what he left out, right?
Yeah, quite a stunning contrast in the president's off-the-cuff remarks yesterday when he was asked questions by reporters, was not given any advice by advisors on how to answer those questions. And then today, when we saw him sitting there in the cabinet room reading off several sheets of paper, and the cameras, of course, zoomed in on these remarks of the president, and you could see in his classic Sharpie that he uses to mark up papers, right there you can see the president crossing out one line where it said something about bringing people involved in election meddling to justice, and adding another line in all caps in a black Sharpie. That is the president's handwriting to say there was no collusion. Because, of course, the president didn't come out today and just say he did believe our intelligence agencies, even though he contradicted them in the next breath. He had to make clear, he got his argument in there, that there was no collusion, Erin.
All right, thank you very much, Caitlin. Pretty stunning. I don't know, something about seeing that in black and white on the paper after it was prepared, what he added and what he took out, says so much. Out front now, senior political analyst Mark Preston, April Ryan, White House correspondent for American Urban Radio Networks, and Steve Hall, who was the CIA chief of Russia operations and has spent a lot of time in Moscow. Thanks to all. So, Mark, look, we now know the president is the one who went in the room and said, I've got this idea, right? I'm going to say I misspoke. But I'm only going to say I misspoke once, not any of the other times where I expressed pretty much the same sentiment. I mean, I say this, and I'm not saying it tongue-in-cheek. How stupid does he think we are?
Well, short answer is that he thinks we're very stupid. And in many ways, you can't argue against that. He has gotten away with this ever since he came down that escalator when he announced his presidency. We have seen him time and time again say one thing that is outrageous, that causes anger. Then he turns around and acts like he never said it. Now, the problem that we're facing right now, Erin, is that he enjoys an 80% approval rating amongst Republicans. So when we're attacking Republicans on Capitol Hill for not doing enough, in many ways, they're flummoxed. They're running scared. They don't know how to deal with Donald Trump. In many ways, he has become a president on his own without any allies, that the only people that are supporting him right now are those who fear him.
And the question is here, April, is whether all of this will matter. I mean, you know, you heard Caitlin just go through, right, what he added. There was no collusion, but what he crossed out. And that's what I want to ask you about, right? These are prepared remarks. He goes and he reads them. He was supposed to read one that said anyone involved in that meddling to justice, you know, brought to justice, right? And he took that out.
Yeah.
Anyone involved in collusion. How telling is that?
It's very telling. Words matter. And I mean, Erin, think about this. When the president goes off script, he's rogue and he causes mass pandemonium. Look at what happened in Charlottesville. He went off script. It took him 5 or 6 times to correct it because the nation was in an uproar. Now the world is in an uproar for what he said. When a president speaks, it's strategic. You have people who go through and vet what the president says at least 20 or so times before it's delivered. And that's in a prior White House. This time the president went off script when he was in Helsinki Monday. This president supported Vladimir Putin. He basically said, I trust you without verification. The words of a president are strategic, and the words of the president are important. They shape markets, they create peace, they create war, and they also help with our lives. So when this president goes back and changes it a day later, understanding Republicans and Democrats are upset and the world community is laughing. And this president says things like, you know, you're unpatriotic for this. People are saying what he did was unpatriotic. He cannot change what he's already done. History is showing it.
So, Steve, you know, even when he said, I accept the intelligence community's assessment, he had to ad lib the caveat. And let me just play part of it again for you.
I accept our intelligence community's conclusion that Russia's meddling in the 2016 election took place. Could be other people also.
And he continued to say there's lots of other people. That is not the conclusion of the intelligence agencies. What's the reaction there?
You know, it can't be anything but, I mean, my former colleagues in the intelligence community, not just CIA, but NSA and all these other places that also do very important and very difficult work against the Russian target. It's some of the most difficult stuff that we do. And to hear the president, you know, in almost a hostage, you know, letter reading type of situation say, okay, yes, they were right, but then again, there might have been others as well. It's not something that increases morale. It's not something that you go home in the evening as an intelligence officer and say, I'm doing really hard stuff, but it's worth it. It's really, it's got to be bad for morale.
It's really interesting how you put it, though.
But
like
Erin,
a hostage reading. Hold on one second, April. I'm just saying to Steve, like a hostage reading situation.
Yeah.
He seemed extremely uncomfortable reading that.
Yeah, and I think it's also against the backdrop of, you know, I think there's a lot of people, certainly at least at CIA, who remember him, you know, referring to the agency as, you know, Nazi-like. And all of this thing, people don't forget these things, especially the ones who are doing the hardest work, which is against these hard targets like the Russians. And it's just really debilitating, I think.
April?
Erin, from day one, this president has had a hard time dealing with the intelligence community. I mean, look at what just happened with General McMaster. He let him go because he did not agree with him. And this man has known the world, traveled the world. He's been in military. He knows intelligence. Then not only that, just think about from the moment this president came in, he did not like receiving a book of intelligence every day. He needed bullet points. He didn't want to go through it every day. He didn't want to do what other presidents did. He did not want to accept the intelligence from the intelligence community to give to him so he could understand the lay of the land of the world. And if he would have read it like a book, he may have been able to change what he did Monday.
I mean, Mark, this is the kind of thing that he would ordinarily call fake news, right? Oh, you guys are so fake. You're acting like I took a line out, and you're acting like I added a line. Well, except for now there's camera proof, right? Because he left his notes in front of him, and now we can zoom in, and you can see, right? There it is. There was no collusion. He added that in, and then made the point again and again. Here he is.
There was no collusion at all. And people have seen that, and they've seen that strongly. The House has already come out very strongly on that. A lot of people have come out strongly on that. Furthermore, as has been stated, and we've stated it previously and on many occasions, no collusion.
Is that what this is all about, Mark? I mean, is it really about just that one thing? He feels delegitimized by it, and so that's the only point that he cares about?
Yes. And can we just stop for a second and just kind of laugh at President Trump for the fact that he had to write no collusion down on a piece of paper, because he has been saying that over and over again.
Well, we know he's not going to forget the point.
Right. How could he forget it? Why did he need to write it? But really, on a serious note, right, and I'm just sitting there and I'm looking at Steve sitting at that desk, who has devoted all his life, you know, to try to protect the United States from Russia. And now he's seeing a president absolutely unravel it. And for Republicans out there that might be watching, let's forget about the politics of all this. Let's forget about the policies that he might be pushing. Let's just look at the conduct in office. And if you're going to go and talk about Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush helping to bring down communism, to disable the Soviet Union, then you certainly can't be supportive of President
Steve,
Trump.
quickly before we go, we know that part of the reason he did this today was he was afraid of resignations, right? Dan Coates obviously coming out with his own statement without the White House signing off on it, going against the president yesterday. How real is that fear of resignations?
I think it must be significant. I mean, a guy like Dan Coates has got to find himself in a difficult position, because on the one hand, you want to stay there to try to keep the course and to try to make sure that your intelligence collection works and that whole system functions. But at some point, you also become complicit in it. And I think really there is a time for people like Coates and others to say, look, we can't abide by this anymore. We really have to make a statement and leave.
All right. Thank you all very much.